Amen.
L'chaim, l'chaim. Special treat for tonight. And this is a letter that Rebbe wrote. I didn't copy the whole letter. Time is short. I just wanted to do one footnote of the letter. This is a letter that Rebbe writes and we covered the. Oh, the covered. We covered Yud Beis Tammuz. Here there's a footnote. It's 99 years since the Chag Geulah, the Friedrich Rebbe, and Friedrich Rebbe wanted that this day should be kavua as a Yom Tif, as a Chag Geulah. And the Rebbe quotes his letter that he wrote. I didn't make the copy of the whole letter. The Rebbe says that his father-in-law said that the main thing is about Satoira, and he goes through at that time, whatever the campaigns, the Lubavitch Rebbe had mitzvah campaigns. So he goes through the mitzvah campaigns, mitzvah Torah, mitzvah tefillah, mitzvah mezuzah, mitzvah tzedakah, mitzvah bayis molas svarim. Then there's brackets. Shalim da Torah she'achel tefillah naila yosef, befrat shatefillah hareu b'agdam es koyved roish, u'kumo yishenem rishlach vel Hashem b'hadar es koydesh. We went through the last one. Yeah. Schnell. L'chaim, schnell. Yeah. You guys didn't get l'chaim.
Learning.
Yeah.
That's enough.
So at the Farbrengen, that was after the Rebbe sent this letter, because we always have that koch looking at the Rebbe's letters, the footnotes. L'chaim leverocha. The Rebbe said that someone asked him that how come he quoted that the koyved rosh tefillah is like the pasuk says, "Ishtach v'la Hashem b'hadas kodesh." Anyone that learns the Gemara knows the Gemara slugs up that limud. The Gemara brings several limudim how you know you're supposed to have koyved rosh and koydem atfila, and the Gemara slugs it up. And Taken Shulchan Aruch doesn't bring this limud of Bahadas Kodesh. The Rebbe gave a biur nifla to think that the Rebbe actually, the diuk otzum and the Rebbe's words. The Rebbe said, I don't understand the question. Didn't they notice that I quoted first the Oira Toira Larav Magid Ein Dem Nim Lispalel? So obviously there was a connection. So let's turn the page just so you see just read it quickly. The Mishnah says, "Ein einem l'spalom et achrev v'derosh." Chasidim rishonim l'shor shoachas m'spalom kadesh yechavna livem lavim shb'shamayim. Afil hamelech shlo b'shlom lo yishvin afil alof korach alakei v'lo yafsek. Tell you more about the Mila. How do we know this? Amar Rabbi Elazar, the pasuk says, "V'himoras nafesh." That when she davened, she was with bitterness. Maybe Chana was very bitter. It was a situation, she didn't have any children, a story with Kina. How do you know that every davening and every person on a regular Wednesday has to be with the same feeling of Chana? So Gemara says, "Take Elam Rabbi Yosef Reb Chanina mehoch." We learn it from here. V'ani b'Reb Chazda chava v'esecha shtach alech koch b'irasecha. That David the Melech says that when he comes to Mishtachva to the Eibishter, it's b'irasecha with an unbelievable yira. So Gemara, how could you learn from here Ilma David shiny, maybe David HaMelech is different. The David HaMelech was very different. David HaMelech, who can compare to David HaMelech? Elam Rabbi Shua Levi said mehoch. It says, Ishtach Val Hashem Bahadras Kodesh. Al Tikra Bahadras Ela Bechedras. That instead of saying Bahadras Kodesh, say Bechedras Kodesh. Charoda means that a person is trembling. A person is trembling. Charoda. Charoda is an unbelievable tremble. Zogi Gemara Memai, who told you that it means to tremble? Dil Maloy Lemay Hadras Mamish, that it means to Ahoder, Wahoid Vahoder. Yehoder Rabbi Yehuda, Metzai Nafshe, Vahoder Metzali. That we find that Rabbi Yehuda used to dress nicely because you stand in front of the Eibush, you have to dress nicely. Not only when you come to shul and daven, you have to dress nice. It makes no difference if you're davening your shul or you're davening by the koisel. You have in your house a koisel, right? So
Every house.
every house has a koisel. Yeah. Every house has a koisel. Sometimes it's good to daven at the koisel. So you have to, but it makes no difference if you're davening. You're davening in the.
It's everybody plays the daven.
No, you daven also sometimes. You got to daven there too sometimes.
Say hello.
So it has to be Bahadras Kodesh to dress. You're standing in front of a king. Elam Reb Nachum Yitzchak Ma'ochetz. From the really, it's from this pasuk. If this Shem B'Yida V'Kila B'Roda. Okay, and that's where the Gemara stays at. So, and Shulchan Aruch Taken, Simon Tzadik Gimel, the Alter Shulchan Aruch brings. How do you know you're supposed to have Kovid Rosh B'Tfilah? Yaakov, come sit down here. How do you know you need to have Kovid Rosh B'Tfilah? Because it says even this Hashem B'Yida. So, Yaakov, come. So, if you look at the Yerushalmi actually, we'll skip the Tosfos for a second. Yerushalmi brings both limudim together. The Yerushalmi Taki doesn't slug up Rabbi Shua ben Levi. And the Yalkut Shimoni is interesting. Yalkut Shimoni says, Ishtachim L'Hashem Bahadras Kodesh. Rabbi Yehuda Metzai Nafshe V'Achkech Metzali. Shona Rabbi Sein Eren V'Smalim. Takei B'Derosh Al Tikra Bahadras Al B'Chatras. So the Yalkut Shimoni means only the limit of Rabbi Shua ben Levi. So the Rebbe said, the people asked him, how come in the letter when he said that you have to be Mispal Matakei B'Derosh, he quotes Rabbi Shua ben Levi, when the halach is like the Bible, and you see the Shulchan Aruch quotes that how do you know you have to have that Kovid Rosh from Yibudus Hashem B'Yira, which is a simple pasuk, the second pasuk in Kapitel Telem. The Rebbe said, Pure Nifla, Yisoid is what the whole idea of Tefillah is. The Rebbe says, who's talking here? It's very different. It's not a question about how to darshan a pasuk. It's not a question about how to darshan a pasuk. The question is, what kind of Kovid Rosh we require over here? This morning I spoke about, I said, because we ran out of time, I'll mention tonight, kosher, there was a book, Kosher Astrology, in Flatbush, so the thing is, it's an old business, the Chinese cookies, the fortune cookies, good things are coming your way. So was also schlecht? Why is astrology not so kosher? So this morning I said we'll talk about it now. The Gemara says when the Gemara in Shabbos, the Gemara talks about all of this, and the Gemara at the end of Shabbos, the Kufnun Dalet, the Kufnun Hey, the Kufnun Vav. The Gemara says at the end that there was a Kaldoi that said to the mother of Reb Nachum Reb Yitzchok that your son is going to be Aganim. It's Tam Aganim as Aganim Shebeganovim. So the mother said, so the mother said, well, what should I do? She didn't want to tell her son. She was smarter than that. She's not going to tell her son that that's what she heard. So she made,
The guy Takazan
Aganim.
So listen, it says,
yeah.
Don't tell me what to
That's
do.
my destiny. No, she told him, she made for him a special thing, which was a chiddush in those days. Gemacht a kapelish for him. She made a cover for his head. And she said that you should wear it the heavy imta the shmai alach, that you should have Yiras Shamayim. Ben Ish Chai says that, like Shabbos is talking about, where you looking? The angels fly up in heaven. So they look down. They look at the bald spots of the people. They look at the top of their heads. So
Well,
it's if they see a yarmulke as makif masama ein if it's on him, because we know that the Kabbalah says that when there's a oil makif, it makes the clippers blind. So when a person has a covering on his head, so that's makif, that's pchinas makif, it's a kedusha of makif, and that makes them blind. Especially all the clippers are ganov because they steal energy from kedusha. Man rishi gandvi. So therefore she didn't want him to be chaz v'shol maganim. So therefore she gave him a makif to kedusha. She gave him a kapelush, a kippah, a covering on the head. Was the Gemara that he was sitting and learning one day under a date tree, and the wind came and blew off the yarmulke. And that second, he had such a taiva to steal that he wanted to steal the dates growing. A date tree is a very unusual tree. Most trees the Eibishter made, you could pick an apple, an orange, a zoy,
Not that one.
but not the date. A date tree, you need a cherry picker to get up there. The Gemara is like that. With his bare hands, he climbed up to the top of the tree, and he with such a taiva to steal that he bit off the dates with his teeth. He didn't pull it off and come down. He bit it off. Then he knew why his mother told him to keep the yarmulke on his head. He was very careful. And we did a sicha this year, Shavuos, where the Gemara says at the end of Soita that when the Tana was saying different before Mashiach comes, it's going to be disaster, all kinds of good midas you're not going to lose. And the Tana said that there was bottle anova v'yiras chait, and Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Nachman stood up and they said, Lo tisna anova diika no. Lo tis, that's what Rabbi Yosef said. Rabbi Nachman said, Lo tisna yiras chait diika no. We dealt with that. But just in a kuda was, what is it Rabbi Nachman saying? Lo tisna yiras chait diika no. Don't say that there's no more yiras chait. I'm around. What's the pshat? The kuda of that beer was that so we have to get out of this bitter golus. So it's how are we going to get out of this bitter golus? How are we going to get out of this? The Republicans, Donald Trump, it turns out the Bolak and Bilam, it's garnished. So what are we supposed to do now? There has to be Yidden can lose all kinds of things, but the basic tools to krich out of this golus you got to have. Yiras chet and anova are the two basic things. If a person doesn't have anova, you're not the passion avodas Hashem when you don't have anova. It's a very fine point. We need a little bit Toras of Hashem to Toras of to understand what anova is. But without anova, you're not in the passion, and without basic yiras chet, you're not in the passion. So Reb Nachman said, how could it be there's no yiras chet? Women the shtaros krichen from the bitter regolos. How are we going to get out of this place? We got to get out of this place alive. So he said, look at me. I have a tendency to be a ganef. I pushed a ganef. And because my mother put a yarmulke on my head, so you see, so don't say there's no, don't say there is yiras chet. But we're not talking about high levels. He was trying to say,
it's not making yiras chet.
It's simple. It's simple, very simple stuff. It's very simple stuff. So therefore, this that of Nachman by Yitzchak, when he said koived roish, what does koived roish mean? Koived roish could mean a lot of things. What does koived roish mean? The Rebbe said, if you want to say lomdish, there's poil pula nifel. Poil pula nifel is like gavre chefts or something. Poil means the person. Is the koived roish to make the person a kli kibul, that he's the proper person to be roi to daven. And according to that, koived roish has to be before the davening, or is it in the chefts of the davening that the davening is zayin davening, that zayin bachno b'shiflus, and it's not before davening, it's bam davening, or it's that's the pula, that's the chefts, or it's the nifal. If we want, if I want to, if you want the tefillah, a person that tries There's no question. His tefillas are niskabel. So what are we talking about when we say kovid rosh? There's all kinds of levels in kovid rosh. You see, the Chassidim Rishonim spent an hour to get to kovid rosh, and Nachum Yitzchak says, you know what? Simple. Even though Hashem be Yira, Yira could be in the lowest level. Yiras Chet, Yiras Einish, just Yira, you're in. That because he holds that the kovid rosh is on the most rudimentary level. It's the entry level. And that's why the Shulchan Aruch Paskin, and that's the Maskon and the Bavli. Who is it? Rabbi Shua ben Levi. You know what Rabbi Shua ben Levi is? The Gemara says that Rabbi Shua ben Levi, that there were people that had terrible tzaras. The Gemara describes the worst tzaras in Ksubas Tafayin Zayin is Balei Ra'oson. The worst of the worst. The Gemara in Birchen says if you see the flies, you know how the black fly came around in the Middle Ages. Because there was a boat that came into Italy at Machlis. They didn't realize that the mosquitoes and flies they carried the Machlis. And the Gemara says the Bali also you have to be very careful because just the little flies, the mosquitoes that come from the house from the Bali also will infect you. And it's a deadly disease. The Gemara says the only way to get healed from the Bali Ross, the Gemara says theoretically, if you it's a machlaza, that you have to open the skull. You have to open. The Gemara says you have to cut the skull open it up. It's open brain surgery, and the Gemara gives a whole eitzah and you burn the bad stuff, and then if the guy's not dead yet. Then if the guy's not dead, it's a machla called Balei Rosa. And the Gemara is going to be very careful. If the wind is blowing 100 miles from the direction of his house, the Balei Rosa, you go from here. It's that. Chazal say that the machla could be carried. People didn't know how does machlas go, but the Gemara says that the little insects that fly from Hachal Awesome, they carry machlas gefährlich. The Gemara says the Bishur ben Levi. That there was the Balei Rosen, he would go Korich Gabay. He'd make like Morer Koirich. He would sit with them, make Koirich, a sandwich with them. And he never got sick. He said, this is Toida's. When it came time, the Malach HaMavis said, who is there? The Malach HaMavis is there. Knock, knock, knock. Who's there? The Malach HaMavis. He said, Malach HaMavis, what can I do for you?
Do my job.
I hope you don't understand, business is business. So he said, you know what? Do me a favor. I would like to see what's going on in Gan Eden. Okay, no problem. He said, but no. A guy like you, I don't trust you with your sword in your hand. Give me your sword. So he said, okay. He gave Rabbi Shua Levi his sword, and they came to Gan Eden, and Rabbi Shua Levi jumped to the other side of the wall. And the Malach HaMavis grabbed him by his collar. And Rabbi Shua Levi made a shvur that he's not going out to the other side. Because if he goes to the other side, the Malach HaMavis is going to kill him. But in Gan Eden, the Malach HaMavis can't enter. So they asked what to do. So the Rabbanu Shalom said that they're going to check. If he ever was Mater Neder, then they'll Mater this Neder for him too. But if he was never Mater any Neder, they're not going to be Mater this Neder. They found he was never Mater any Neder. So they said he has to stay in Gan Eden. But Rabbi Shua ben Levi refused to give back the sword to the Malach HaMavis. The Malach HaMavis said, well, I can't work without I need a truck to make deliveries. I can't make deliveries without a truck. The undertaker needs a truck. So there was a pascal that said you got to give him back his knife. And then he went and he found that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said that are you bar livoy? If there was never a keshes in the world in your lifetime, then you're really bar livoy. And he, from his big anova, he didn't want to answer that. But the Gemara says the emes was that just like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, in the schus of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, there was never a keshes in the world. The same thing Rabbi Shua ben Levi in the schus of his avodas Hashem, there was never a keshes in the world. Never ever. His schus was Megan on Klal Yisrael that there was never a keshes in the world. What is the pshat that a person is going with his goof into Gan Eden? Whatever the pshat is, It is exactly. It's like Eliyahu Novi. In other words, that by him, his goof was not a contradiction to Gan Eden. Me and you, regular guys, we kriegt nicht rein mit der Guf in Gan Eden. The Neshama kriegt in Gan Eden. Halavai. But the Guf kriegt nicht rein in Gan Eden because there is you know, it's like, you know, they're trying to put monkey hearts into humans. That gets rejected. It doesn't go. It doesn't go. So kriegt nicht rein. But the same thing here. As a human body, kriegt nicht rein in Gan Eden. It doesn't go there. But Rabbi Shimon ben Levi, the kedusha of Rabbi Shimon ben Levi, he was so the bittul and his anovet. Gemara says at the end of Soita that he said the highest level of everything is anova, because when a person has anova, the Rabbi Shimon ben Levi says, "Borei kama gedolim nemuch ruch b'fnei Hakadosh Baruch Hu misha daite shvela malav alakosa kilu ikrev kol hakabonas kulam shenemar zivcher elikim ruach nishbora." The Rebbe says. So you ask Rabbi Shimon Levi, they asked Rabbi Shimon Levi, was it does kovid rosh? Was it does kovid rosh? What do you think Rabbi Shimon Levi is going to answer? The Rebbe said, he probably answered the same thing that Maggid. They asked the Maggid, what's kovid rosh? What's kovid? The Maggid said, you know what kovid rosh is? When a person stellt sich davenen and he says, who cares what I need? Who cares? I don't care. What do I care what I need? I want to know what the Roish, Reisha the Choresh, what does the Rebbeinu Shalom need? The Rebbeinu Shalom needs my davening. The Rebbeinu Shalom is lacking because I am lacking. And the Chelik is missing, the Klal Kulo is missing. So when my Neshama has a Yirida, it's affecting the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's Ochem Vei. So a person is davening because it hurts him, the lack and the pain for the Eibishter. There's koive the roish. He's feeling the kvedus in the Eibishter's roish because I am lacking. And a chelik pshat atayfetz b'miktoset atayfetz b'kula, like the Baal Shem Tov says. So because in the chelik there's lacking and the Eibishter is lacking, so it hurts the yid. And with this he's davening. It's chanan the davening. It's another koive the roish. Should Rabbi Shua ben Levi didn't learn it from, he said, what are you going to learn? I'm going to learn from the Bazi. Yida Hashem Yida. Yida is the most basic level. Behadras kodesh. He wasn't worried about the Gemara says, oh, hadras could mean, why are you saying hadras means hadras? But the Rebbe says, we know that there's many Limudim Chazal say al tikra. It's not the first time. I'll take it banayach ela banayach. I'll take it vayikra ela vayakri. I'll take it this that. Now there's a shalo about this. Sometimes there's something wrong in the pashta pshat. So the shak matari and the meforshim, what's wrong in the bahadras kodesh? It could be the Bavli thought that Rabbi Shimon Levi didn't see, well, what's the bahadras kodesh? So they said you should get dressed nicely. But the emes is that the Shalosh says a lot of times Chazal said al tikra. There's nothing wrong with the first word. Al tikra, the Shalosh said doesn't mean, it's not the way people think al tikra that this is wrong. Al tikra bonayich ela boinach. Don't say only bonayich. It's both bonayich and boinayich. So al tikra hadras kodesh. Hadras kodesh means that a person sees the hoid v'hodar of the Eibishter. The Rambam says, how does a person feel small? The beginning of Yisod Torah, when a person thinks about the godless Akeu, and then he realizes that he is a Bria Shfola because he sees the godless of the Eibishter. So when that's al tikra b'hadras kodesh, elo b'chadras kodesh. Both are true. When a yid sees the Eibishter's ois v'hodor, the Eibishter's hodor, he gets a charoda, a kedusha dik a charoda, and that's what Rabbi Shua ben Levi said. Rabbi Shua ben Levi said that al tikra b'hadras elo b'chadras, and that he was out of the It's impossible. What does it? So the Rebbe. Now you have to hear the kicker of the whole word. That there is the Bavli, the Yerushalmi, and the Yalkut Shimoni. We don't know exactly who's the author of the Yalkut Shimoni. There's a whole debate. It was probably from the earlier Bali Atoisvis. It was the Darshan of Frankfurt, the Darshan of Regensburg. He was in the 12th century, in the 13th century. Dikid is a given Adam Godel from the from the early Bali Atoisus, perhaps. And it's a collection of Medrash. So the Rebbe says like this. Bavli is b'machashakim Moshivani. Every Yid has to be able to connect to the Bavli. So the Bavli says, you can't. Rabbi Shua ben Levi is too much. You can't expect every Jew every day to daven like Rabbi Shua ben Levi. It's good for Rabbi Shua ben Levi. But you can't expect it for every Jew. From every Jew, you could say, look, Menachem Yitzchak, Zanish Kenganov, Kriech nicht den Gavanish. And you should have, even this Hashem B'yida. And what kind of Achnoah? The basic Achnoah that makes the person Roy to stand in front of Melech Malchem Lochem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Hachona before Tefillah. But Rabbi Shua ben Levi doesn't like that. The Yerushalmi is always a higher level. So Yerushalmi says there's two ways. We're not going to shlug up Rabbi Shua ben Levi. There's two roads. Then there is Medrash. The Medrash says, no. I'd like you to go like Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Because the Chazal say, Roy Soidus HaTorah genuzim ba, v'toich shata loimed Medrash hata makir es misha amar ba'oylom. There's a mile in learning halacha and a mile in the Chazal say that if a person has one without the other is if a person learns only halacha is like a strong man without any weapons. A person that learns only medrash is like he has a lot of weapons, so he's not a strong man. He's a weakling. A person that learns both nigla the Torah and this the Torah, he's a strong, healthy man. Plus, he has the weapons. So the medrash is that's the weapons. That's the soidei Torah. So when you ask the medrash says, "Go, come on, go in the way, go do like Rabbi Shua ben Levi." Every Yid, just like it says in Tanya, Shemitz men of Ephes could say from Moshe Rabbeinu, every Yid could do. Every Yid could do it. Don't tell me you can't do it like Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Okay, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, but Amol, Samach Tzachamol, that you're gonna that medavant. My Zayda, it's 99 years, and my Zayda remembered that his father and the Frierdiker Rebbe ran away from Leningrad. They were about to arrest the Frierdiker Rebbe anyway, and he just wanted to be a little bit. So they were in a shtetl, not out, like a bungalow, whatever, a little town outside Leningrad. The white nights in the summer, there's like sunset to sunrise, garnish. You could chap an early mincha at 12 o'clock midnight. I kid you not. They have in the Lubavitch shul there. They have mincha and an early ma'ariv at 12 o'clock, 11:45, 12 o'clock. They say v'hurachim stachliktik and drois. So my Zayda said he remembered he was a kid, and there was a little wooden, like there was a shul there, and Frierdiker Rebbe sat on one side, and his father sat on the other side. They davened shoot there all day. In the summer day, days, 18-hour days. All day. They davened. No, Shachris. Shachris. They davened. So Yid is going to say, huh? No, before Pei Zayin. This was, or maybe in Pei Zayin, or maybe the summer of Pei Vav. My Zayd is not around there. I can't ask exactly when it was. It was before. So the Rabbi Shua ben Levi is the Shtiyadena can azay machen. But the Medrash says wants to encourage every Yid to do it. Every Yid could do it. Every Yid should be able to do a little bit like Rabbi Shua ben Levi. The Rebbe says that's why in the letter, what's the Gevend Shaila? I quoted Oira Torah la Rava Magid. So b'meila, that's why I said that the Hakdamas of Kodesh Rosh is Kamoshe Nema Yishtach V'La Hashem B'Hadras Kodesh. What's the kasha? Unbelievable. Agav Urcha. Since we're already on it, let's read the Rebbe's Ha'ora Taka. Kodesh Rosh Einer Torah La Rava Magid Shom Reish Parshas Vayigish Admor Tzemach Tzedek Psedur Reish Parshas Reish Shara Tefillah Shtach V'Hadras Kodesh. This pasuk is 3 times in the Tanakh. Tehillim Choftes, Tehillim Tzadik Vav, and Divrei Hayomim Tezayin. Hine betoisvus brochus maskanos shekavon lemizbah Choftes. Aval b'yalkut shimoini hu v'mizbah Tzadik Vav. V'rei mechabro yov the yalkut shimoini is makad moinim. V'yesh lem etayim edakosu mizbah Choftes pirushi Chazal sheviu atoisvus dekoy al brocha shlishis of Shmoneser. So therefore, the Yalkut Shimoyne didn't like what Tosfos says that the limud of was from Mizmar Chavtes in Tehillim, he rather say it's from Mizmar Tzadik Vav in Tehillim. Which to me is Tosfos the Avad of the Hovei Raya Mehem Shechakos of Chilu Mefonav. The Keinu betoisus Shalafenenu. Never mind the brackets for a second. Kol Yitaritz. The Zekoya Kol Haaretz. But like that, I guess I hear the Mispalo. I don't want to take so much time a technical thing. You'll take home the thing and you'll think it through. You'll see what the Rebbe is saying. But I think what really happened is that Rebbe was excited. His father-in-law, when he wrote the letter, Tav Shalom Adei, if his father-in-law would have been alive, and Tzadikim, when they saw some Kroim Chaim, would have been saying Kapitel Tzadik Vav in Tehillim. And because we learn, according to the Yalkut Shemoinim, when B'Shuv Levi said, Yishtachem L'Hashem B'Hadas Kodesh, it's not referring to Kapitel Chavtes in Tehillim, rather it's Kapitel Tzadik Vav, which starts with Shir Hashem Shir Chodesh. And that was the year Yud Beis Tammuz is also the Frierdiker Rebbe's Yom Haledes. So therefore, the Rebbe quoted when he said, because according to the Yalkut Shemoni, that's the pasuk, not Chavtes and Tehillim, rather Tzadik Vav and Tehillim. So the Rebbe could have got up in the Farbrengen and said, that's why I quoted it. And Sadova Pasha, that's the reason. Come on, that's the reason. Elamai, but that's nicht emes. So therefore, the Rebbe said, no, Taka da aloche al pin nigle for every yid every day is the chnishtazah. But up here, Shalmi the Chiazah. And up here, the Medrash, in the Chavada Azoy. And even up here, the Bavli, you can't expect every Jew every day. But really, we want the Jew to daven, Ishtachav al Hashem be'hadas kodesh, that we should feel this cheder as kodesh. So really, the Rebbe brought this pasuk, Ishtachav al Hashem be'hadas kodesh, because that year, his father-in-law turned 95. And he would start saying the kapitel Tzadik Vav, just like now, the Bavitch Chassidim say kapitel in Tehillim based on kapit
125.
Yeah, 125 in Tehillim. So the Rebbe was saying his Rebbe's kapitel. And so that year the Rebbe was saying, on Yud Beis Tammuz started saying kapitel Tzadik Vav. Therefore he quoted that would have been good enough for the Rebbe to say it. That's why I quoted this pasuk. But by the Rebbe, everything in Torah has to be emes, and therefore he quoted the Magid that Kovid Rosh Satifa Darge, and Yeshua Levi is a hand and a glove with the Torah of the Magid of what's Kovid Rosh, and that was the pshat. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Kindly, girl. I got married 30 years ago, and I was in Koilo. They gave a big fat check of $175. But my rent was 525. So how do you make up the difference? Come on, yeah. The numbers don't always stim. So even when they pay more in the kollel, but the rent is always seems to be more than what they're paying in the kollel. So I bumped into a friend, uh, Manan Chachashvili. So he lives in Queens, and there's a Georgian Jewish community in Queens on Yellowstone Boulevard. He said they have the Hebrew school, and they need someone to run the Hebrew school. They have like 100 students. Would you come Sunday morning? According to the Cheshbon, I'd be back in Koilel already for the first Seder. So I did it. At the end, I ended up doing it for many, many, many years. And I got to know everyone in the Kehillah. One day, it's given a Yom Tov. The Rav Roshi from Eretz Yisrael, Rav Roshi L'Chachmei, Gruzia came. So the downstairs was the Talmud Torah, upstairs was the shul. And I went upstairs. I wanted to see the Chacham. And there were maybe over 1,000 people were there to when he spoke. And afterwards, everyone came to say Shalom Aleichem. So I also went over to say Shalom Aleichem. And I said, "Oh, who are you?" "Oh, I was chavrusis with your uncle. Milan zusammen in Troim Chetmimim." So we spoke for a little while, but it was fascinating. This week, I buy the Kfar Chabad magazine, and they said they found a letter a few months ago, and there's a picture because I see him Chacham Yaakov Dabrashvili, and I see Taka my uncle, a picture of them together, and and they said they found a letter that he wrote to the Rebbe when the Rebbe had Yechidus. He didn't walk in and speak. Kayadua, you would first write your stuff, and that was just the way it worked. Strange how so basically it was 5, 6 pieces of paper that he handed over to the Rebbe. Usually the Rebbe ripped them or burnt them. So for some reason, these papers the Rebbe did not rip and the Rebbe did not burn. And they surfaced a couple of months ago. And so today the policy is, no holding back. The Rebbe, listen, if the Rebbe wanted to burn something, he had time to burn it. If he didn't burn it, I could ask him with the policy. If the papers are found, Shmamina, you got to publish them. If the Rebbe wanted to burn it, he could have burnt it. So, Yadua, before the Rebbe had the stroke for a week, he was busy shredding documents, burning documents. So if it's around, it's funny. I caution a 5-page thing that he handed to the Rebbe, and they're publishing it now. So it's beautiful, beautiful. He gives the Rebbe a summary of his own history, and then he talks about the Yidden that are now. This is in the 70s when there was a big influx of thousands of Georgian Yidden that came to Israel, and some of them came to America. First, he talks about his. He said there was a Talmud that Chaim Brisker sent to Gruzia, tried to open yeshivas, and it didn't work out. So they sent a delegation to the Rebbe Rashab, and he describes it to the Rebbe. The Rebbe Rashab took off his glasses and he started to cry. And he said, the Baal Shem Tov said, and when are the Yidden in Georgia gonna start learning Todas Baal Shem Tov? Kitze, he sent one of his Choshev Talmidim to open up a yeshiva. And also he brought many Talmidim that came and learned in Tem Chetmimim Lubavitch. And later, it was back and forth. There were students that used to come from the major cities in Gruzia that would learn in Tem Chetmimim Lubavitch. And he said a story in your Pei Gimmel that the Frierdiker Rebbe danced Afka with the students that came from Gruzia. So someone asked him why Afka dancing with these Talmidim. So the Frierdiker Rebbe says that there's a story that there is a Moshel brought Masidus that there was a king that had a Mesiba and everyone brought him a matona. And one brought him a tzipah medaberes, and he loved it more than anything else. So I said, "What's so special?" He said, "Because the chiddush medaber." Anyway, he goes on to tell the Rebbe that after Simchas Torah, Frierdiker Rebbe called him in and said, I'm sending you back to Georgia, and I want you to teach. Fast forward to Tafresh Pei Zayin, Tammuz time, Tafresh in the summer, Tafresh Pei Zayin. He says, I'm giving a shear in the Beis Knesses to 5 Talmidim, and a person walks in and he's listening to the shear. And after the shir, he tells me he wants to talk to me. So I walk out, and he flashes a card. He's from the KGB, and he says, "You better be quiet. You'll walk in front of me, and I'll walk behind you." And he tells him where to walk. I guess at that time, 1927, Mr. Stalin, so I didn't want to start up at the Gruzina. The Gruzina can't get me the hand tegen. So they were scared of it because the Sephardi Yidden, and they were very proud. They were all from the Yidden. They're all Shomer Torah mitzvahs and B'mida Yadua. They were all putting on film. Not like the Ashkenazim, which Rachmana litzlan, so many of them were communists. Fadreit. They were all Yereim V'Shleimim. I guess the KGB didn't want to have a sichsuch in the Beis Knesset, and all of a sudden there'll be whatever. They preferred to do it the quiet way. So when he gets to the HQ of the KGB, he's brought into interrogator's office, and the guy starts talking to him. He says, "Like, we know everything about you." Okay, start talking. So that's fascinating. He's writing this to the Rebbe, and mitnamol, some gechapt a Gruzina Ganev. He was robbing every bank, and they couldn't catch him. Gechapt the Ganev. A real shoyded, but him gechapt. Kemoitze sholarov. And they bring the guy in chains, they bring the guy to the interrogator. So the interrogator says, "You wait for me out in the hallway. I'll call you back to my room soon." So he thinks to himself, Chacham Yaakov, I'm going to sit here like a yokel waiting. I mean, where am I going to go? So he goes to the front door and he said, "They told me to go home. Where's the documents?" No one goes. He said, "They told me, and they said that I must go home." They were so they couldn't believe that someone would lie. So the guard let him go. He went home. He took his towels to him, and gemacht vayivrach Yaakov. And he went where? To the Rebbe, to Leningrad, to ask the Rebbe what to do. He finds out the Rebbe's in jail. So he was hiding in someone's house, and then he finds out that the Rebbe went out of jail, and they're going and they're sending him to Golus to Kastanama. So he came to the train station, and he said he was to hear the Sicha Yadua that Frierdiker Rebbe said at the train station. And then he decided he wants to go to Kastanama. When he gets to Kastanama, the host of the Frierdiker Rebbe tells him, "Are you crazy? You're endangering the Frierdiker Rebbe's life." But he says that the Frierdiker Rebbe already heard there was a commotion and what's going on. They said, "Yaakov Dabrashvili is here." Frierdiker Rebbe said, "Don't send them away. You should stay here, and I want to see him Motzei Shabbos for Yechidus." And he describes to the Rebbe how the whole Shabbos went. Frierdiker Rebbe came to Shul, Gedaven, Barichas, the whole city came. The Galachim come and cook him. The Badaven noch the Sfira Zege, the Frierdiker Rebbe still davening Shachris. And like anecdotes. Frierdiker Rebbe insisted they should come eat in his house. And he tells the Rebbe it was like so hard for him to eat in front of the Frierdiker Rebbe. But Motzei Shabbos he had his Yechidus. He told the Frierdiker Rebbe what happened. The Frierdiker Rebbe said, I want you to go back to the KGB, to their office, to the same investigator. And this is the plan. So first I want you to go to Moscow. I have a chassid, was a grandfather of Rabbi Yoel Khan. Tell him, Bishmi, that he should make for you documents, false documents showing that you're buying and selling fur coats. Then you should give him, the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote a note, and he said, when you give it to him, both of you should read it and then burn it. You're allowed to be my ticket, but it has to be burnt. Stama had to do something with the plans of what the Frierdiker Rebbe felt they should do to help him, and he wanted to burn it because it would be dangerous. If they wrote it over, so it was their Ksaviat. I'm just imagining. I don't know. He's just writing to the Rebbe. I guess he assumes the Rebbe knows what he's talking about. He says he came, I mean, he didn't ask where's the address to the Folakan. He came to Moscow, he's on the train, he sees Ayid Metabor. So he realized this must be a person. And he followed the person to his house. And the person said, this morning I woke up with an intuition. I didn't daven yet, he said. I woke up with intuition, I have to go to the train. And I have no idea. I'm traveling aimlessly. So it's like a Pliyatsuma. He's writing this whole part of, he's writing to the Rebbe, a story that happened with him. And he said that he went to Neville to tell them that the Friedrich was free, and they Farbrengen for 3 days and 3 nights in Mashketz and Gigosim Vivase. But then it was time for him to go back. The Friedrich told him he went back home, and all his friends and relatives told him, "Mishuga, you're going back to the KGB." Friedrich said. He went back to the building. He said the Shomer Badatir given Samach Simcha Gedoyla. And he brought him straight back to the original interrogator, and he pushes him into the office. The guy looks up at him. He says, "You came here, or they brought you here?" He said, "They came here. They didn't bring me here. I walked in here." "Why'd you come here?" He said, "Look, I was brought here, and I got the picture that you don't like that I'm teaching Torah. You don't want me to be a Rosh Yeshiva. I got the picture. So I figured, let me mend my ways. I went to Moscow, and I became a businessman here." He pulls out a stack of papers. You see, selling, buying, I'm selling. I actually made a couple of bucks. Chutzpah Yazgid. So the guy looks at him and says, "Look, pal, being a businessman is better than teaching Torah, but that's not the ultimate. The ultimate is being a worker in a factory. That's the ultimate. But you know what? It's nicht gefährlich. It's nicht gefährlich. You can do a little more business, but be very careful. I don't want to teach. I don't want to catch you that we're teaching Torah." And Kachava, he went back to teaching, and he was caught again many years later. He was caught again, and he sat in the Chad Gadya. And when Stalin Yimach Shaboy was killed, and then they let a lot of inmates free, they let him free as well. Atkan Sipur, and then he goes on to say about the challenges of Georgian Jews coming to Israel and America. Oh,
At the end of his life, where did he go?
in Lud, there's a big Georgian community. He was considered the Rav Roshi. Huh?
Got to Israel.
They got to Israel then. And then at the end, he writes the Rebbe, he feels bad because he thinks that the Rebbe is not happy that he left. So the Rebbe said, because the Rebbe told him that he should say that all the Chachamim that are still there should stay there and not come to Eretz Yisrael. So the Rebbe tells him, Mashem Etzad gave a kanonu, and you don't have to feel bad. You belong here now. And then the Rebbe answered him then all the questions that he had about we'll have to establish.
Currently on the paper.
No, that's a separate note from Chadakov. They have with these 5 papers, they have a clip with a note from Chadakov, all the things that I guess Chadakov later, or Chadakov was. There's like a note attached. Yeah.
More of these letters are ready to be found.
I don't know.
So the Rebbe gave him answer.
Yeah. So it's wild. It's just wild. So the thing is that now we're going in 100 years, 100 Sinin of Shlemus. Spoke about the Shabbos. Usually Shlemus is not such a good word, but just like we just said, davening. There's davening. There's all kinds of levels of davening. There is starting with the level of davening of Reb Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rabbi says every Yid should try to get to the level of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. It's nice to daven on the basic level, which is required, the basic level of Koved Rosh, but the Yid really should try to daven on the level of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. So we're going into a year of Shleimus, 99 years of the Chag Geula, the Friedrich Rebbe, going into the 100th year. So what can you say? It's very simple. That Friedrich Rebbe taught his Hasidim what it means chutzpah l'mal yusah. The Gemara says, and before Mashiach will come, it will be chutzpah yazke. It'll be chutzpah yazgi. So we know that Frierdiker Rebbe said that you have to take the kroshim from the Mishkan is to take the sheker of the oilamas and make it into a kiddush for the Beis Hamikdash. That they take the shtus of lumaza and to make it into shtus the kedusha. That was the big thing of the Frierdiker Rebbe. That to take the shtus. So I think for sure that that you could say that that the Frierdiker Rebbe would say that if you say that in the end of Soita that Mashiach will come, it'll be chutzpah yazge. People will be very chutzpahdik. So what does that mean to us? Why is the Gemara telling me and you? So you say Pashat. You see people are being very chutzpahdik. You say, oh, it's take it easy. It's good. You should smile. And the rest of us chutzpah, take it easy. You should say Mashiach kumchen, it's good. But the oimak Inyan is that we have to use the chutzpah l'mal just like in this story. It's like, wow, what a story! I can't believe it. He was such a gentle person, but you read his story to have the courage to listen to. You have to have amunas chachamim on the highest level. To have amunas chachamim on that level. Frierdiker Rebbe didn't give him a magic wand. Say you go in there and it's going to be okay. The Frierdiker Rebbe said, "V'koi tedabe." Das machen nicht wissen, they should say kocha. But a person that thinks that that it's the tricks would not. If a person came doing it as a trickster, it wouldn't work. Dafke because he was a chosid, and dafke because he had a munas chachomim. So it worked. It worked. Chutzpah the kedusha. So the Frierdiker Rebbe teaches us. This is the big thing that the Rebbe said that Arizal said. The Bashemtiv, the Torah of Bashemtiv, that the Torah of Megillah Mafrei lo Yotza. That the Mafrei means that he thinks that the Megillah is a nice story that happened many years ago. So if we read a story that happened to Yid of Chacham Yaakov David Ashvili, the Frierdiker Rebbe gave him an eitzah. It should be a chutzpah yad a chutzpah yad, and it worked, and it saved his life. So what does that mean to us? That when we read the Gemara that says before Mashiach comes, there'll be a lot of chutzpah, that we have to use the chutzpah and kedusha. We have to use the chutzpah and kedusha. It can mean a lot of things, but there's no question that here in America, Yevish B'nei Maligim is a very, very big challenge, and the chutzpah, the kedusha, is a very strong tool. I don't care what anyone says. I do my thing because that's it. I'm connected. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave me a shlichus, and I'm connected to the tzaddik, and that makes no difference. With the attitude of chutzpah the kedusha, l'chaim, maybe shall helfen take that we should break through, and we shouldn't need any more the chutzpah the kedusha, because we see already there's so much chutzpah already. Must be Mashiach kumchen. So we should take the last few moments that we're here in Golas. It should be like with the most order of a simple, it's supposed to be a car. L'chaim. Anim zmira is the she Imena Oiki She's Imzviros Shiva Medavetselya Elchava Colors, I love it. Scholars, names made vision. She's she got the color of that. She yeah, 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 yeah. Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah. Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 Dark cloud, like the rain, oh, Lema Khan, I can't say, yeah, I'm here to serve you, Dalim, King. Somalechana, I come Alechana, Hari, Yeren, Sing, Amayen, Oh, Ayan, Ayan, I I can't back again. Shukazi, Sekhari, Siska, Smaideka. I can't back again. Shukazi, Sekhari, Mira, Siska, walk by the Makodesh, Akasi, Echalira, Soskan, Kavoiden, Ka, Aya, 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 Rani, Wow, Ya, 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 ya. Chaim l'chaim. Okay, so I have to conclude the Farbrengen. We started, it's all like really a hemshech. We started the Farbrengen. The Farbrengen's around Gimmel Tammuz, Beis Tammuz. It's all one. Starts from Chof Chesivan. So we started at the oil. We asked that they should give us a room. They gave us a room at the oil. And someone came in and asked that he wants to tell a story. He's the kitzur is Mendel Bloy from Eretz Yisrael. He works with Kol Chabad. Kitzur, there was a guy. He's helping all the families in Nebuch that suffered around the kibbutzim and the places where Yidden lived around Gaza. There was 12 men that were called. It was a kibbutz. They were from kibbutz. They were called to another kibbutz where they were old people and they couldn't defend themselves. And he said that this guy's name was Oizglik, and he was wounded. What happened was there were 12 guys, and it was like an ocean of a whole bunch of Hamas. They were outnumbered. So he remembered. He read from Rabbi Yoram Abrajil. He was an interesting guy. It's a Moroccan Jew. Morocco. He has a son. He puts out the lies all over Israel. He puts out these like pamphlets, and he published from his father this Sfona Montagna. Sur Yorum. So he writes his father writes in the introduction that if a person is in a Torah, that there's a Kabbalah, he should say a few lines in Tanya, and then he should say Rebbe Yoshieni. So he said a few lines in Perikut Beis in Tanya. He started screaming Rebbe Yoshieni, and all of a sudden the Hamas guys left. Taka, that place was saved, and that was it. So he was wondering, Taka, it's very nice for Rabbi Jill Tizakt, but did he cook up a nice story, or there's a mocker for it? And he goes, Ashgacha Pratis, that Shabbos in one of the Chabad publications, there was a Sikha from the Frierdiker Rebbe where he said that in Tofresh Nun Hey, his father said a Sikha on Yutas Kislev, and that his father said that there's such a thing. It wasn't Mamish Ois Bois Milas as the way Rabbi Brajil said, but that was the Nakuda, that if a person says a Shtik Montanya, and he asks the Alter Rebbe to help him, and the Alter Rebbe comes and helps him. That was Ad Khan story. That was the story. So as we conclude the Farbrengen, the Rebbe had said that in that year, 1895, the Rebbe was a young man, just got married. Oh, and they didn't get married yet. Oh, how old was he already? He was born 15 years old, right? It's a fresh man. That's when he got married. No. He's next year. Nun Zayin, he got married. Anyway, his father told him, "I'd like you to take you into Avodas Askonas Siburis." So he said, "I'm going to teach you what it means Askonas Siburis. You have to have Mesiris Nefesh. And what is Mesiris Nefesh? These are the words in the Sikh. Azoyo nicht anders. Like an actionist, but this is the way it's going to be, and That's it. It can't be different. A person has an intuition how it has to be. Azoi und azoi und nicht anders. These were the words. Azoi and azoi und nicht anders. And the Rebbe used to repeat it a lot of times. That what's Mesilas Nefesh? Azoi and azoi und nicht anders. What does it mean? Azoi and azoi und nicht anders. Well, what's the Pirish Amilas? Like obviously, if the Torah says that there's three mitzvahs, it's Yehorig Val Yaver, is Yehorig Val Yaver. You don't need a pshat, a word from Tofresh Nun Hey, that the Rebbe Rashab told the Friedrich Rebbe, Azoi and azoi und nicht anders. If it's one of the three mitzvahs, I think the pshat is so poshut. Like the Rebbe said that L'choyres Fanlo had such Mesiris Nefesh. For what? If you look up, he didn't teach little children on the Bar Mitzvah. Maybe it's a Shaila, but the Friedrich Rebbe understood the main Gidi, main Tioshim. If kids will be indoctrinated with communism, and then you'll tell me when he's 18 years old, it's never the Bachar and start teaching him Torah, and the cup is fasamt with samamovis, it's not going to work. So it's reingestellt when Mesiris Nefesh Mamish, Tafke for little children, Tafke for little children. It's reingestellt like größte Mesiris Nefesh. So that's, if you open up the Rambam Hilchos Yesod Torah, you're not going to find it there. But that takes a healthy intuition. And that's a pshat, azoi and nicht anders. That sometimes a yid, has an intuition. Obviously a tzaddik, you could see with his eyes, like, we see today what the Friedrich Rebbe saw then, that this was vital, this Mesiris Nefesh. But look, every one of us, we have sometimes moments of clarity. But then we question ourselves, it's a horror comes again. So that's the lesson of Yud Beis Yud Gimmel Tammuz, that there's certain akshonas that we know azoi and azoi is nicht anders, and when we have that akshonas, we say azoi and azoi nicht anders, we're matzliach in our avodas Hashem. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. So matzliach sein Tag, we shall have a gesunde Sommer, and the rest of the summer we should spend Yerushalayim HaKodesh Revius Mashiach Tzidkei.
So they said Rebbe Okshioni. So he's praying to the Rebbe.
Didn't say he was praying to the Rebbe. Huh? Wishing, not Yoshing. Hoi, Hoshi, help me.
Yeah, right. So I said. Rebbe, so he's praying to the Rebbe.
The Rebbe.
Well, that's all.
Talk to Rabbi Brazil. Talk to Rabbi Brazil. Talk to Rabbi Brazil. I'm just quoting what Rabbi Brazil said.
No.
The same.
Okay, shukach for joining us.
One of the Ikarim.
Zaidi, shukach for joining.
There's only one God, and he's the only one.
Chaim l'chaim l'chaim.
There's also a